Good morning. I know it's still the middle of the night in Boston, but you guys won't believe where I am. I'm in Cape Town, South Africa. I married Gruni in 2000 in Johannesburg and never made it to Cape Town, South Africa. But here I am, climbing Lion's Head, and I've been blessed to see the most glorious place on earth. How beautiful is Cape Town between Table Mountain and Lion Head and the water and the climate. And we're here for a few days for my niece's wedding. So I figured why not share Dvar Torah as I'm climbing up the mountain. You know, in this week's Torah portion, we take a little turn from Jacob to hear the story of Joseph and his brothers. The sibling rivalry between Joseph and his brothers. And of course, it ends off where they first throw him into the pit and then they sell Joseph into slavery. Joseph comes to Egypt and he builds his way up. He's charismatic, he's handsome, he's loyal, he's smart, and he becomes the head in charge of the home of Potiphar. But of course, the story goes, Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him, and when Joseph resists, she throws the blame on him and he ends up in prison. Joseph spent 12 years in prison. Well, while he's in prison, Joseph is always helping people. And Joseph meets the butler and the baker of Pharaoh, who were thrown into prison. And they have a dream, and Joseph wakes up one day and he sees that they're not happy. And he helps them interpret the dream. And he tells them, to the butler, that in 3 days Pharaoh is going to give you your job back. And then he tells the baker that in 3 days Pharaoh is going to hang you. And he makes one plea with the butler. He says, please remember the story and remember me to Pharaoh. And the last words of this week's Torah portion end, V'lo zachar Sarah mashkim es Pharaoh, that the butler did not remember Joseph. And the question is, how could he not remember such a monumental part of his life? Here he is in prison. He meets this remarkable man who interprets his dream, and how could he forget that and not remember him to Pharaoh? And the answer the rabbis give is there's many, oh yeah, go Yankees. There's many occurrences in our life, some more dramatic than others. And of course we remember what happened. But what the Torah is asking us is not if the butler remembered, but if he acted upon what he remembered. You see, yes, he remembered what Joseph did, but he didn't remember to plead the case of Joseph to Pharaoh. And that's what the Torah says. It's easy to remember, but how do you act upon your memory? How do you act upon the things that impact your life? Do you just sit with folded hands, or do you actually do something to change it? You know, you think about October 7th and the hostages in the last few days in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and all over. Someone has been flying a plane and making the hostage ribbon to remember the hostages. But they're not just making the ribbon to remember the hostages. On October 7th, the IDF and every single person in Israel and Jews all over the world didn't just remember the hostages, but we acted upon it. We went into fight in Gaza, and we went into fight in the north. It wasn't just about what we remembered, it was about the action we did. We lost 800 soldiers fighting to get back our hostages. Hopefully there will be a deal soon. But when we think about our IDF heroes and the people of Israel, we know that they remembered, not just remembered, but they acted upon it. You know, there's this woman, Hadass Milner, she lives in New York. Her son's a lone soldier. And on October 7th, without getting a Tzav Shmona, which is when you get called up, he immediately decided to go fight for Israel. But what he saw in Gaza was too much for him. And he got PTSD. He couldn't handle it anymore. But usually when you get trauma, you go home to a loving mother and father who embrace you and siblings. But this lone soldier, Aryeh Milner, he went home, but it was an apartment alone, suffering with his PTSD alone without anyone around him. And his mother wrote an article in the paper about how her son, who's a lone soldier, how difficult it is not just to have PTSD, but to also have to deal with it alone. And immediately she got calls and emails and letters of people that wanted to help her and go visit her son, and they did, and they brought him things and they showered him with gifts. And then someone wrote him, we want to send you a ticket as a gift so you could go and visit your son. And she flew to Israel, Hadass, for a week to visit her son Aryeh. And when she came, she got to meet all his friends who were embracing him and visiting him, all those that were in the army with him. It was such a remarkable thing for her to be able to help her son recover from all that he had seen. But guess what? She decided to make a barbecue for all her friends, like a party, a picnic. She invited all his friends. She started cooking and baking in his apartment. And then she sent a couple of friends out to go buy baked goods. And they go to the pastry shop and they're buying all these stuff. And the two girls behind the counter say, "What are you doing? Are you having a picnic?" And they say, "No." They tell them the story about Aryeh and how he's having PTSD from the IDF and how they are going to make a party for him. And immediately these two girls go around the store and they make this most beautiful gift basket with wine and with chocolates and with pastries. And they give it to him with a beautiful note. They say, "Please give this as a gift to Aryeh from us and tell him Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people live forever." That's a story of remembering. Not just what you remember, but how you act upon the memory. Now back to Cape Town, South Africa, where I am watching the most glorious, here we go, one little view, getting to the top of the mountain, Lion's Head, here we are, beautiful day, blessings that Almighty God allowed us to be here for the few days that we're here and enjoy this 25 years after we got married and didn't end up in Cape Town, eventually came. Hopefully soon we'll bring the family. God bless you, have a